Now our last video is a nice calm video from the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. Just speaking to us as Tea Partiers about, who our friends are, who our friends might not be. Because sometimes it's easy to divide things into D's and R's. And I'd like to think that us thinking citizens can get beyond D's and R's sometimes. So without further ado, Laura's going to start that up for us.
The Tea Party movement remembers the Bush years, the spending, the expansion of government. They understand that the Republican Party is part of the problem and that they have to be watched closely. And in fact, I think that's one of the refreshing things that suggests they might be something different in American politics. The Tea Party movement is certainly very welcome, it's very enthusiastic, but they have to understand that the federal government, the spending, the programs are deeply entrenched. Republicans may be part of the answer, but they also have been part of the problem with big government. Remember, David Stockman, who was Reagan's budget head, proposed really steep cuts in the federal government in 1981. Then he went to the first cabinet meeting, and sure enough, who was opposing these? Who was fighting for their budgets and their programs? Many of the members of Reagan's cabinet, all Republicans. That problem is really one that goes to both parties, and the GOP certainly has its constituencies that benefit from and support big government. An effort to reduce the size of government to some reasonable level is going to have to be sustained. It begins with Congress in 2010, but it's going to have to focus also on the presidency and beyond. Some Tea Party people will prove to like big government. The polling suggests rather disturbingly that some of them think that the entitlement programs, Social Security and Medicare, are worth their cost. And that would suggest that down the line, if a new president or a new Congress tried to cut those programs, it would be like Ronald Reagan in 1981 and 82. There will be a lot of pushback, and some of it might come from the Tea Party people. Democrats may well be part of the big government problem, but they can also be part of the answer. For a long time, prior to Reagan, they supported tax reform, meaning getting rid of tax loopholes. Reagan realized that tax loopholes were one way that Congress controlled the economy, through carrots rather than sticks. So he joined with them and helped pass the tax reform of 1986, which was remarkably successful. Tea Party people need to be looking for these kinds of deals, these kinds of opportunities. The Tea Party movement should explicitly reject the mistakes of the George W. Bush administration. They should straightforwardly say the lack of restraint in foreign policy did not serve the nation well over time. That does raise the question also of defense, which is going to have to be part of the budgetary equation, particularly if you're trying to cut the government. But it's not enough simply to cut defense, which historically has been one part of the government you can cut. You have to think beyond that, the lack of restraint in the overall strategy. Why are we involved in so many countries throughout the world? We have to think rather about a more constrained military, and the Tea Party can lead the way on that. Ronald Reagan and the 1994 Republican class had something in common. Neither of them ran on social issues. They also wanted to support the Constitution, and indeed the Tea Party movement people in it often say they want the Constitution back. Well, that suggests an answer to, I think, some of the social issue questions. The Constitution of 1789 was about federalism. States had a very important role still to play in American government. Renewing federalism would mean social issues could be dealt with at the state level. That would strengthen the Tea Party movement for its most important task, cutting the federal government. The Tea Party movement remembers the Bush years.